Hello and welcome. Have we got some great stories for you this week? And Kieran Clair from Bricks and Mortar Media will join me in just a moment as we will discuss these stories. Why Andrew Winter needs Selling Houses Australia. Now there is an interesting story. The casualty of a declining market, suburbs where prices have trebled. Yes, you heard me right. The property that comes with a title. Co-working works in the Sunshine Coast. As well as that, we've got two more of our classic building stuff-ups and why women live longer than men. Back in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
Welcome back to the show. Joining me is my co-host, Kieran Clair from Bricks and Mortar Media. G'day, Kieran.
G'day, Kevin. Big news, hey, this week? All these big newses. Well, generally, I mean, this is big news.
This is big news. Of course It's big news. Yes, this is Big News Week. Hey, we should change the name from Property News Update to Big News Week.
Yeah, sure, that's just as catchy. It'll be great.
What are you saying? What are you saying, my friend? Hey, Andrew Winter. Now, here's an interesting story. Property expert and television host Andrew Winter has snapped up a luxury retreat in Mermaid Beach while still awaiting the sale of his old family home. Now, here is the question for you, my friend.
Go ahead.
Andrew Winter hosts a show called Selling Houses Australia, which helps people sell their properties, right? Mm-hmm. Properties that here until now have not been sold. He's had his house on the market for how long?
Since January or something like that, isn't it? January,
a long time.
Yeah.
Now, here's the message for you, Andrew. If you're watching, and I know he's a regular viewer, he watches this show all the time. I'd like to think so.
Religiously.
Andrew, could it be that your house is overpriced? Maybe you need to bring the team in because you've given it a makeover and it's still not selling. Maybe you should check the price, Andrew. There's a piece of advice for you, free.
Gee, you enjoyed that, didn't you?
I loved every minute of that. I've interviewed Andrew on a few occasions, and I hope you realise, Andrew, that I'm saying all of this, with joy in my heart.
Of course. I'm sure he does. He's a delightful bloke. I actually, we interviewed him back in the magazine days, and he is a very nice gent.
Of course he is, yeah.
He's got his house, the Sanctuary Cove property that he needs to unload is listed at $3.95 million. They paid $1.9 million 2 years ago and did a bit of renovation. But it's hard work trying to sell a house and put yourself under the pressure, particularly if you contracted on another elsewhere. Maybe he hasn't got any finance worries.
Like they do say that real estate agents make the worst sellers. So there you go, Andrew. There's a reality check for you, my friend. Maybe you need to check the price. Okay, yeah. Check the price of your...
The only other thing I'd say is that in the story he was quoted as saying that a beachside knockdown and rebuild was kind of the dream, but having a look at the photos of the house he's bought, it looks pretty good as it is. So
it's not a knockdown, that's for sure.
It doesn't look that way at all.
I wouldn't have thought so.
And I reckon they missed an absolute golden opportunity to use the headline, "It'll be an endless summer for Winter," in this story.
Oh, come on. Yeah, okay, well, never too late. We could use that one ourselves. Hey, I was going to tell you about Real Estate Talk. The show is out tomorrow, and I've got no notes here to tell me what's on, and typically I can't do that, so... Watch out for it. It's out tomorrow, Real Estate Talk, the show. I don't even know what number it is. But anyway, there you go.
It's always brilliant, full of excellent content.
It is indeed. Yeah. It is indeed. Like our next story, the casualty of a declining market. This one, moving straight on. This one comes out of the Orange County in the US of A. More than 500 Southern Californian real estate agents have been scrambling to find a new employer after 10 office group announced plans to shut down at the end of this month. This is all to do with the downturn in the market. Obviously, transactions have slowed down. We're looking at about 500 agents across 10 offices. So they're fairly big offices. But, it's something we don't think about when the market turns down is the lack of employment opportunities for real estate agents. They do fall out of the market pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's right, Kevin. There's a whole lot of really annexed businesses that rely heavily on the strength of the property market. And I can say, coming from the property media industry, publications, websites and other businesses rely on strength of the market too. And this it seems like a monumental number. I noticed with some with some relief that it says later in the story, over half of those agents have found employment again now, many of them through Coldwell Banker. But to see 500 out the door very quickly on the back of a softer market, and also it must be admitted, they said that advances in technology and the evolution of how agencies work has also played its part too. Did you spot that one too, mate?
Yeah, having you and I were in New York at the start of the year and talking to a number of agents there, the market is definitely shifting with things like iBuyers, which is something we're covering in our Tech Talk show coming up in a few weeks' time. I mean, the market in the way they transact property in the States is definitely changing. There's no risk of that. And I think we're going to see more casualties. And I don't know that it's necessarily down to just a change in the market. It's more about a change in how the market is now working, I think, Kieran.
And this has been going on, all over. We talk about it in Australia as well. There's not so many people who wander up to the suburban real estate agent, look in the glass window and pick a house and wander in anymore. A lot of those things are replaced. Agents operate in a mobile basis from their cars and on the internet, and bricks and mortar isn't so important. So the evolution of our industry will be exciting times, but adapt or die seems to be the question here.
Yeah, very much so. Let's take you to story number 3. This one comes from the Urban Developer. Suburbs where prices have trebled. I think this is a story that comes from Propertyology, if I'm not incorrect. Yeah, it does. Yep. Okay. Despite home prices declining in Australia's 2 biggest cities over the last 18 months, historical data by Propertyology has revealed that median house prices in 111 Australian locations have trebled or better over the last 20 years. So something Simon Presley does extremely well is go back over and gives us all a bit of a reality check, I think, because sometimes we can be generalists about our comments on the market, the market's in decline or whatever. But there's always a good story that Simon and his team at Propertyology can find, Kieran.
That's true. And Simon, as you well know, is a great champion of regional investing and keeping away from the capital cities. He probably makes a pretty good point here about long-term investing and not putting all of your eggs in the one basket of saying, well, I can only buy in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne and make a profit. And one of the big actually outtakes from this story is that Byron Bay exceeded Sydney for median price. If you could believe it, we call it the Chris Hemsworth factor. Byron Bay's touching close to 990,000 as a median, and saw an annual capital gain of about 10.1% over the course of the 20 years. Geez, if you were getting a compound at 10.1% on just about anything, Kevin,
I'd be pretty happy.
I'd be flying in my private jet.
It makes it one of the most expensive markets in Australia, actually.
Yeah. Oh, look, extraordinary returns for that northern. And can you imagine what the surfers of the 60s were thinking if they...
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Bay now.
Yeah, exactly. They could...
Is go.
Oh, well, isn't that the way? I mean, I sometimes think back now on properties that I looked at as a kid, and if only I'd had the ability to buy some then, what would I be worth nowadays? But, hey, it's never too late.
I think I've said this story before. I had a chat with my dear departed and much loved dad many years back, where we spotted a riverfront block down around Kangaroo Point, which was selling for several $1 million, and he said I had an opportunity to buy that for $250,000 at one stage. I said, "What annual wage were you on there?" And he said, "About $15,000 a year."
Yeah,
I said,
that's
well,
right.
there you go.
It's all relative. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember Mum and Dad had an opportunity to buy a house on Bribie Island right on the water, and Dad said, no, I don't want to be this close to a busy road and the water. I'd much rather go further back in So, there was a lost opportunity. But anyway.
Anyway, we all have our war stories.
We do indeed. Hey, ever wondered why women live longer than men? We'll have a look at this photo. This probably tells you something. Now, you've done some research on this photo and you think you might know where this is. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I'm wondering if it isn't part of the Hushan cliff walk. And I was talking beforehand and sent you a link to a video of something. I have an unhealthy obsession with the idea that for people that can deal with heights. And as soon as I saw this, I thought, my golly, that looks tough. But if anyone ever wants to see something truly scary, check out the cliff walk videos. Hushan, Huashan cliff walk in China. That is heart-stopping stuff.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that video that you sent through to me, that link, and I couldn't get past, I think, about 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, no,
2 minutes was enough. The thought of that guy walking down those very steep steps and just hear him breathing, you think, oh, goodness gracious. But have a look at this photo again. Look at that scaffolding on the side. There is no way I would work out there, and they're obviously laying concrete or something, which is going to add to the weight of what the strain they're putting on that scaffolding. You know what I like, though, Kevin, as always, hard hats. They've got hard hats. I mean, sure, there's a 2,000-foot plummet below them, but their hard hats they need a parachute too.
Yeah, well, why aren't you in charge of this building site?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I'm not, mate. I wouldn't want the responsibility of that. Occupation, health and safety that doesn't exist wherever this is. If it's in China, there you go.
I think it's fan-bloody-tastic that someone can do it. It certainly isn't for me. I've got sweaty looking at that, mate.
We are going to come back in a moment and tell you where you can actually buy a property and get a title at the same time. Back in just a moment. Welcome back to the show. My co-host is Kieran Clair from Bricks and Mortar Media. Kieran, story number 4 from House and Property. The property that comes with a title. Now, we all know that every property has, well, most properties have a title of some sort. But here's a 3-bedroom apartment in the UK with more than just one title. How much would you, of that $1.1 million, would you think to buy this? Is part of the purchase price is toward the lordship title that comes with the property. Doesn't it cheapen the lordshipness? Is there such a word?
Yeah, you've created that.
You're a wordsmith, yeah.
I shall check Oxford next year, and no doubt it'll be in their dictionary.
Yeah, indeed.
Mate, buying titles I don't think is probably something, if I could controversially say, too new, probably.
Okay. They're up for sale, are they?
I think there is a market for that sort of thing over there. But, if Thurland Castle over there, pretty magnificent building, and you're buying an apartment that's one of the wings, and it comes along with the lordship, it's got to be tempting for those who think that you can buy class. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, yeah. Is it really all that important? It doesn't really turn me on.
No, I can't say I've wanted to be called Sir
Kieran? Sir Kevin?
Sir Kieran of the real estate. No, there's nothing catchy about that.
No, not at all. Well, there you go. Anyway.
Did you Did you ever look through the photos too? I like the upstairs
Yes.
has a spacious bedroom with a 4-post bed and lots of storage. But the best bit of this for me is not the Lord being the Lord. It's that there's a moat. There's a dry moat.
But it's a dry moat.
Yeah, I know. But,
It's a moat.
what's that? A weekend with the garden hose. Surely you can get that thing filled.
Yeah, well, you could fill it up, couldn't you?
Why not?
Go for a bit of a row in the moat.
Why not?
In your moat boat. In your moat boat.
Mate,
You asked for it.
look, you're on fire today.
You
This has
asked
been
for it,
going on-
yeah.
This is going on since before the camera rolled.
Yeah, I know. Yes, indeed. Hey, commercial real estate, give us our last story for today. It's interesting this because I was at a meeting just this morning and saw some co-working. This is actually quite exceptional. One of the reasons I put this in here, but co-working works better in the Sunshine State. Brisbane CBD has the biggest proportion of co-working occupancy anywhere in the country. And when you see how this works, it really is quite amazing. I've been into a few of them. We've had a few meetings in some of them, but they're really very, very classy. And they're actually quite affordable too, Kieran.
Yeah, and we've adopted this with our business as well, Kevin. Sometimes you need to be centrally located in a space with all the facilities, a meeting room, etc. And for as little as I think the last co-working space I went to was costing me $30 for a hot desk, internet access and a coffee machine, and to be surrounded by people who are working. Because normally, as you know, Nicola and I both work from our respective homes, and sometimes you need to be in company. Co-working's a great option, so much so that people I know in some of the really, the big four advisory firms are finding that rather than taking out whole office towers, they're locating their teams in co-working space to maintain flexibility.
Yeah, and the other thing too, growing companies, wanting to move into, say, someone wanting to move into Brisbane or Sydney, and they've probably only got one or two team members to start with as they grow the business up. Co-working spaces are brilliant for that because very low overhead, no real long-term commitment, but gives you the opportunity to have a professional front as well as an answering service. So it's no wonder this is really a great growing industry.
It's good to when you think about almost the psyche now of the small business startup. A lot of people want to start their own business and have a go at things, and they use that term bootstrapping. You got to keep your costs low while you're trying to get the business going. There's no need to have the big open plan office and the buzz of all those employees. So I agree with you. I think this sort of this has come into the zeitgeist right at the right time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And we're really taking advantage of it. I can only see it onwards and upwards in the near future for this sort of stuff.
Certainly can. And talking about onwards and upwards, what about this one? Let's bring this photo up. Building stuff up. It's not, well, I suppose in some ways it is a real big building stuff up. But have a look at this crane that's toppled over. Now, bearing in mind that probably when this happened, there was some guy sitting in the front of that truck, which is now way, way up in the air. So, one, how's he going to get down?
Needs a crane.
But how lucky was it that I think it took out a couple of cars, maybe, by the looks of that photo, as it toppled over. But it so easily could have gone just a little to the left and it would have gone through those houses.
While everyone was sort of having a go at the OH&S guys here, I was thinking, bravo, for somehow you have managed to compensate for the idea that when the crane falls, it's going to fall on the roadway. I mean, that takes a certain amount of skill, don't you think?
Well, it does. And there must have been something fairly heavy to make it topple too. And I can't really see on that photo what it was, but I tell you what, that's pretty catastrophic.
Do you reckon one of them said, "Oh, we'll just chuck some bricks under the wheels. She'll be right."
Oh. Incredible. Incredible.
What could possibly go wrong?
But can you imagine being in the front of that when it starts to topple and then it just goes up and up and up and up and up, and then all of a sudden you're right at the top?
I know.
That's one hell of a roller coaster ride.
Absolutely. Mind you, if you work on a crane, he's probably pretty comfortable at those sorts of elevations anyway. So maybe there was no long term psychological damage. I don't know. But Boy, oh boy, someone lost their job, I think, over that one.
Yeah, great photo, great photo. Hey, my friend, thank you very much. Great talking to you. You have a good weekend. This for us is a big weekend because we move house on Monday. For regular viewers, you'd be aware that we've sold our home and we're moving to an apartment, downsizing a little bit. So that's another exciting part of our life. But we make that move on Monday.
It's very exciting, and in celebration, I'm going on holiday in a week and a half.
Are you? Where are you going? Oh, I see. Yes.
No, sorry.
You don't want to help with the move.
No, that's
It's all under control. I've got a wife who is really good at this.
Oh, does she have a ute? Does she operate a utility truck? Is she?
Do you really want to continue with this conversation?
No, I best not.
No, best not. Okay.
I got in trouble last time.
Move right on. Hey, Kieran, great talking to you, my friend. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon.
Thank you. And we'll be back with Property News Update, more than likely with Nicola McDougall next week. That's normally what we do. And don't forget, Real Estate Talk, can't tell you what's in the show, but it's certainly out tomorrow and it's well worth a listen. Look forward to catching up with you. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Monday morning with Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic to give you all of the auction results from over the weekend. See you then.